Hey up everyone, in today's video I'm going to be telling you the rematches that we need to see this year. But just before we get started, guys, if you have any video ideas for me, let me know in the comments and I'll see if I'm able to use them in a video. To start things off, I've gone with the fight I feel like makes the most sense, and that is a rematch between Sean O'Malley and Peter Yan. This fight took place a couple of years ago now on a Saudi card, 3-round fight, and it was a razor close fight. It could have gone either way. I believe that Peter Yan won this fight, and I think most people believe that Peter Yan won, but given that how much outrage there was when the judges' scorecards got read out and O'Malley was named the winner. Now, it's been a few years since then. O'Malley's been gone on to be a champion and also lose that title, whereas Peter Yan went on a bit of a losing skid, but then recently he got a win against Song Yadong and then got a nice win against Deiveson Figueiredo as well. So I feel like this fight makes a lot of sense to make right now. I feel like with the history behind it, it just helps make this fight a lot more interesting and exciting, and the fight alone was very entertaining to watch. This was one of the best fights of, I think it was 2022 at the time. This was one of the best fights of that year. A super fun fight between two strikers, mixing in some takedowns with Peter Yan. Make this 5 rounds. I think that if this was a 3-round fight, it really would benefit Sean O'Malley, but given what's gone on now, Sean O'Malley fighting for a title and doing a few 5-round fights now, why wouldn't you make this fight 5 rounds? Make it a 5-round fight and put it on a pay-per-view, you know, do it as like, maybe as a co-main. If you don't want to do it as a co-main, maybe like the 3rd fight into a main card. One of the marquee fights on a pay-per-view this would be, but it'll be a very fun one, and it just makes so much sense in my opinion. Next up, we have the current flyweight champion, Alexander Pantoja, in a rematch against Deiveson Figueiredo. I would love to see this fight. This fight happened many moons ago before Deiveson Figueiredo was the flyweight champion himself. I think it was 2019 this fight happened. And I also believe that it was Pantoja's last loss since becoming I think it was Askar Askarov. Either way, Figueiredo was one of the last few people to beat Pantoja, you know, drop Pantoja as well, had him hurt, which you don't really see that much anymore. Deiveson Figueiredo had that stupid scary power in the flyweight division, and Figueiredo just lost to Peter Yan, kind of ended his winning streak at the bantamweight division and his title hopes. So Deiveson Figueiredo coming back down to the flyweight division, why not? I believe that Figueiredo has said that he's interested in doing a rematch against Pantoja. It would make sense. I think it'll be a fun fight. I think it makes sense. The only problem is, I don't know if Deiveson Figueiredo can make that flyweight cut again. I mean, the whole reason he moved up to bantamweight is because that flyweight cut was just way too much for him. I feel like we saw it in the Brandon Moreno rivalry, where it did take a toll on him when it came to his cardio, and even his chin. He was getting wobbled a few times against Brandon Moreno, who isn't exactly a big hitter, and it was like a few jabs as well, what kind of stunned Deiveson Figueiredo. And Figueiredo was known for having a really good chin, so I feel like with that weight cut, and now that he's gotten a bit older, and that he's been doing bantamweight division for the past year, I'm not sure if it would be the best of ideas to take him back down to the flyweight division. But let's say that wouldn't be an issue and he would still be healthy, then yes, make this fight, because Pantoja, as we all know, is running out of contenders in that flyweight division. Maybe next he's got Kai Kara France. After that, you're left scratching your head who he's got next. Maybe a rematch against Manal Cap or a trilogy against Brandon Royval, even though he's already 2-0 up. So I don't know. I think Figueiredo makes sense, especially given that when they met the first time, Pantoja lost to Figueiredo, so it does make a lot of sense, and it would be very fun and interesting in my opinion. We now move on to the lightweight division, where we have Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker. I think this fight would be another barn burner. Let's be honest, you cannot tell me you would not be excited for this fight again. One of the biggest highlights of 2020, you know, in just a tight-packed the UFC Apex, where you could hear every shot land. There was no crowd whatsoever, but imagine that fight in front of a crowd. It was nice. It was quite nice hearing all the shots landing. Like, it was quite sickening and cruel, to be honest with you, but at the same time, I missed it. I wish there was a crowd for this fight, because the first fight, one of the best fights I've ever seen. The second fight would be amazing, and this fight would make sense as well. Now, I know that Dustin Poirier is talking about retirement in his next final fight, but I'm a bit optimistic that it won't be his last fight and he'll have a couple more maybe. But regardless, even if it was his final fight, I would have no problems if it was against Dan Hooker. I would have I would like it more to be his last fight against Justin Gaethje, but if you said, oh, we're going to go down Dan Hooker route instead, I'll be all for it and I wouldn't complain about it whatsoever. And Dan Hooker, man, all my days, what a resurgence this guy has had. You know, he was counted out, lost to many fighters. I can't even name them all because he lost to a few fighters now. Moved back down to the featherweight division, got dismantled there, so he came back up and still lost a few times when coming back up. But guess what? He stuck at it, stayed consistent, pushed through, and got a big win over Gamrot and Jalen Turner. And now he's back in the mix in that lightweight division where his name is amongst all of the best names as well. And why not make this fight? They're both close to each other in the rankings. Poirier is 4th and Dan Hooker is 6th, I believe. So it makes sense ranking wise. It makes sense as an entertaining, fun fight. And I just don't see why you wouldn't make this fight. Everyone would love to see this fight again. On to the next one where we have a super exciting one between Belal Muhammad and Sean Brady. I'm taking the piss. Obviously, I don't mean that. It's anything but exciting. Even though that could be a possibility at the end of 2025. But the one I'm going to go with, actually being serious now, is Movsar Evloev and Diego Lopez. This one makes a lot of sense. We don't exactly know what's happening in that featherweight division because Ilia Toporia's coach was like, Ilia will vacate. And Ilia was like, I'm not vacating. But Ilia does say that he wants to fight Charles and he's going to move up. So depending on whether that belt gets vacated or whatever, I just feel like this fight is a perfect number 1 contender fight. We don't know what's happening with Volk as well. Maybe Ilia will still fight Volk in a rematch. Who knows? But yeah, Diego Lopez, Movsar Evloev makes so much sense for a rematch in my opinion. Obviously when these two met, it was on short notice for both guys, but mainly Diego Lopez. Because Movsar, I can't remember who he was meant to fight. He was meant to fight someone. They pulled out, so in stepped Diego Lopez. Everyone expecting Movsar to run through Diego Lopez, and that wasn't the case. Yes, he got a clear victory, but Diego Lopez caused a lot of problems for Movsar, had him in a lot of submission attempts, and they were quite close and deep at times. And not only that, but Diego Lopez since then has been on this crazy winning streak, knocking out so many people, battered Brian Ortega, which was a big name, and you got Movsar Evloev with 2 big name wins for him. Arnold Allen, even though Arnold Allen probably should have won that one, but still, he got the victory and it was still a close fight. And then you also had the fight against Aljamain Sterling, which was also very close, but I scored that one for Movsar. So now you got 2 of these guys who are up there in the featherweight division. They've met before and the circumstances are completely different. I would love to see the rematch of this one. Make it a co-main on a pay-per-view. Depending on what, you could even slap on an interim title given what Ilia Topuria is fucking about doing, God knows. But I need to see this fight. I would absolutely adore to see this fight because when it comes to the grappling exchanges, the first fight was super fun to watch as well. I just feel like both guys have really found their groove in recent fights. So I feel like it would make a lot of sense, and the context around it all is a lot more different compared to first time round. Everyone knows who Diego Lopez is now, so it would make a lot more difference, and he wouldn't be taking it on short notice. This would be an absolute fantastic fight in my opinion. And now we move on to one what's not realistic, but it sort of is. And that's Khamzat and Kamaru Usman. Now, obviously, it's not realistic because Usman is pretty much set his sights on welterweight. But if Usman was to stay in the middleweight division, I feel like this would make a lot of sense if Usman could maybe get a win in that middleweight division, and given whatever happens with Khamzat, I feel like this would make a lot of sense. Usman-Khamzat would be a great fight to see a rematch for. We would all love to see it. Again, not the most realistic given where both of them are right now, but everyone would want to see this fight given how the first one played out. Usman took it on short notice. He's usually a welterweight, not a middleweight, and he went the distance against Khamzat, got ragdolled in the first round when it was a 10-8 for Khamzat, but then won the last 2 rounds. Well, he should have. It should have been a draw in my opinion, but no, they gave it to Khamzat, and I've always wondered since then, but what would happen in a rematch? We know Usman would be better if he had a full camp and not a week's notice for it, and he was able to bulk up properly for middleweight. I think it could possibly be a different outcome, and it's 5 rounds long. It could be a completely different outcome, and I think this fight would be fantastic. Why wouldn't you make this rematch? I feel like it would be so fun. We would all love to see it again. But again, it kind of is unrealistic. Next up, we have one that not many people will probably give a shit about, but I do. Okay, it's my video. I'm putting it in there. I'm a big fan of this guy. Paulo Costa, love him, in a rematch against Marvin Vettori. Now, given where both of these guys are, I feel like this is quite realistic. Both guys on losing streaks. I can't remember the last time Vettori won, but he's not really been that active. Took an absolute beating from Jared Cannonier, and that's probably why he's not been active, because he took a lot of damage in that fight. And then you had Paulo Costa, who lost to Strickland last time out, and also lost to Robert Whittaker. Even though that Whittaker fight was a banger and quite close, but we can't say the same for the Strickland fight. But when these two met back in 2021, it was a fantastic fight. I feel like this is one of the most forgotten bangers out there. It was a super fun fight. It could have gone either way, sort of. It wasn't close, but it was competitive. But it was a super fun fight. I would love to see this fight again. Have it headline a Fight Night card. Maybe you won't be able to, considering both, but there's still somewhat big names, especially in that middleweight division. So yeah, I feel like you could headline that for a Fight Night card. Maybe stick it as a 3-round fight on a pay-per-view or on a main card, or to close out the prelims, something like that. But I'd love to see a rematch between these two, because I just think the build-up was funny as fuck, the fight was fun as fuck. I would love to see a rematch between these two. And the final one from me is in the heavyweight division between Tom Aspinall and Alexander Volkov. Now, I was going to say one, but it would be a very boring one, so I'll still put it out there, but I just won't go in depth. Jolton Almeida and Curtis Blades. I'd like to see that rematch, but even though it would stink. But let's go back onto Tom Aspinall and Volkov. Volkov's made a lot of improvements. I know he just lost to Cyril Gane, but come on. I'm a big Cyril Gane fan. I glazed the fuck out of Cyril Gane, but even I can admit Volkov won that fight. I think it's fair to say a rematch between him and Tom Aspinall would make a lot of sense. Now, obviously, we need to see Aspinall versus Jones. That's the priority here. But if that happens quite early on in the year, hopefully, fingers crossed, then Tom Aspinall could fight Volkov at the end of the year if he beats Jones or whatever happens anyway. Yeah, I would like to see a rematch between these two. Volkov has made some improvements. I didn't believe that he did it first, but no, I think he has made improvements. I think he'll be a lot more switched on. I think he'll be a lot more aware of a takedown threat from Tom Aspinall as well, with his grappling, mixing in the grappling like he did in the first fight. I still think Tom Aspinall would win this fight with ease. But when you think of opponents for Tom Aspinall, it's kind of going to end up being like Pantoja if he does become the actual heavyweight champion and whatnot. He might run out of opponents quite fast because he's ran through that top 10 quite fast and just got rid of everyone within the first round. So I'd love to see a rematch between these two, and I feel like it would make a lot of sense. But yeah, those are the rematches I would absolutely love to see in 2025. Let me know in the comments if you agree with some of the rematches that I want to see. Let me know if some of the rematches you may want to see. They could be big ones, they could be small ones, they could be unrealistic ones or realistic ones. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.